Union soldier's bayonet, and I found it in a campsite, and I actually was able to locate where the actual tent was of this particular soldier. And you know, we dug down about a foot and just kind of estimated the actual area of where the tent was, and we found the fireplace. The ashes were still there. Found a couple of Indian head pennies in the fireplace. Then I found an old whiskey bottle inside of there. I found the bayonet, and then over in the corner I dug a button, and the button still had the wool from the soldier's coat on it. And then I dug another button. I wound up digging 20 buttons out of the corner of this tent, and so it was obvious that that's where he laid his coat. And he moved on to another site. He left all these artifacts in the tent, and we found them. This here, if you don't know, it probably doesn't look like much, but it's actually a Confederate officer's button off of his uniform. So it's very rare. There wasn't that many of them out there, and it's probably worth $400 or $500. So when it comes to relic hunting, the Confederate Army, the stuff is rarer than the Union Army, so therefore it's more valuable. And they weren't as well equipped as the Union Army. The Union Army had a lot more stuff, so therefore it's more common, and so it's not worth as much. So the ultimate find is a Confederate belt buckle. Could be worth upwards of $20,000, $30,000 for the right belt buckle. There is a very good written record of the Civil War. Every officer with every regiment was mandated to turn in a report every week. Where is he? What's he doing? You know, it wasn't just a matter of them going out there and wandering around until they ran into the enemy. They had strategies, and they documented everything they did. So these are all open to the public. It's called the Official Records of the Civil War. And you can find those. You can go to eHistory, www.ehistory.com, and then click on the Official Records of the Civil War. And then you can search by areas, you know, Arkansas, Missouri, or you can search by battlefields, things of that nature. Here's an example. Here's a memo that Brigadier General has sent to the upper command, and it says, hold if possible, if necessary, I will transfer my whole force to Point Pleasant. Well, there's your research tip right there. You look up, you find out where Point Pleasant is, and you know, you've got the entire force that is right there, so that's an opportunity to find a lot of neat stuff. Well, it's just a very rewarding, addicting hobby. It's not only rewards in the artifacts and the valuables that you might find, but it's just good, clean fun. You get outside, you get outdoors, you enjoy nature. You're not sitting on a couch and you know, just doing nothing. And if you have that sense of curiosity, then you're going to like metal detecting, because that's what it's all about. I like to think of it as kind of like electronic fishing. It does take patience. You know, you're not going to find something valuable every time you dig a hole. So you've got to have patience, but you've got to have that burning desire to find something good. And when it happens for you once, then you're, like I said, you're addicted. And this is my best find to date, which is the 1715 Spanish gold escudo. It was an ounce of 24 karat solid gold, minted in Peru. Coming along the Florida coast, the hurricane sank the ship, and there was thousands and thousands of these scattered all along that area. And, you know, that's where they got the name, the Treasure Coast. If you go to the Atlantic side of the Florida coast, that strip of land through there is called the Treasure Coast. And that's where it came from, is right here, Spanish treasure. Probably the most exciting thing I've ever found.
From Garth Brooks to the thousands of others hunting for treasure in America, once you start, you just can't stop.
I met Garth Brooks. He came into my store and was interested in metal detectors, and he was actually digging a pond on his property. He actually lives in Oklahoma now, and dug up an old coin when they were digging the pond. So the bug got him. He got interested. He came in, he bought some metal detectors for him and his kids and stuff, and they just went out there and had a ball.
After decades of hunting, Randy offers some pretty simple advice to those just getting started in this hobby.
Spend as much time deciding and figuring where you're going to metal detect as you actually do metal detecting. If you just walk out the door and go to the first place you come to that's easy and it's very accessible, and you know, you've got to figure that probably some other people have done the same thing in that same spot. So if you spend a little time finding that off the beaten path place that nobody else has took the time to research and find, that's when you're really rewarded. And that's when the hobby really becomes fun, is when you're in a place and you're finding stuff. You know, just good thing after good thing, and that's done through research. I mean, it'll happen occasionally by accident, but the people that are really successful are the ones that spend the time in researching and finding out where to go. I know people that have found single items that are worth $30,000 and $40,000. It's no guarantee that you're going to go out there and strike it rich, and actually very few people ever strike it rich. But you know, just I've known people that have bought cars and boats and put their kids through college, all off things that they found with metal detectors. So it's absolutely rewarding monetarily as well as in other ways.
When we return, Phil Foster will share about his 5-year-old son's interest in metal detecting and how owning a coin shop has its advantages in treasure hunting. Welcome back to Treasure Hunting America. Our next treasure hunter is Phil Foster, whose interest in metal detecting was inspired by the gold coins other treasure hunters were bringing into his family's coin shop to sell.
My family owns a coin store, and we've always sold metal detectors. And people would buy these metal detectors, they'd go find just these wonderful finds. They'd find coins, jewelry, they'd bring them into me, and it just made me think, this is something I want to do too. I started asking my father, you know, I need you to take me out. I want a chance at this. I want to see what I can find.
When Phil turned 16, a whole new world opened up for him in treasure hunting targets.
When you have a metal detector in your back seat, you start looking for things to find. You know, you look at things in a whole different light. So when you see an old abandoned house, it's not just an old abandoned house anymore. This is a place you might bring some treasure out. One time I found an old water valve from the Hanford Water Company. Didn't mean a lot to me at the time I found it, but you know, Hanford is a nearby town to where I live here in Fresno, and it's a neat old turn-of-the-century valve. I don't know, you know, something like that's worth a lot of money, but it's not always about the money. Sometimes you just find neat old things. You're always scoping for the best places to hunt. Sometimes it'll be that lake where, you know, where the people have been around dropping things, and other times it's a house that looks like it's 100 years old. All you can see is the chimney standing there. Things that were dropped there, I mean, they've been there a long time.